Welcome to Engaging Truth. This is Dave Schultz, one of your hosts. The other is John Cain, sitting to my left, and we'll say good afternoon, John.
Hi, David. How are you today?
Well, it's a bittersweet day for me, but probably not for you. But we'll discuss that at a different time. We're going to have a special guest in just a moment be on the air with us, and we'll introduce her in just a moment. You know, being a widow is a unique journey. Losing your husband after marriage is like losing a piece of yourself. You are so unaccustomed to seeing yourself in the role of wife, partner, and soulmate, then suddenly you find yourself standing alone, all alone. It seems to be so overwhelming. Your identity has been part of your marriage, and now you have to find a way to recreate yourself to become a brand new you that you have never known. That's where Modern Widows Club can help. And so we're going to join just a moment with Natalie Lancaster, regional leader for the Houston chapters of the Modern Widows Club. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, we're just glad you're here because this is something that John and I have never discussed before. So I think it's important right now to just plunge right in.
Hi, Natalie. Tell us a little bit about your history. Do you want to start there and how you were interested in this organization?
Yes, I'd be happy to, David. And the way it started was when my husband was ill with cancer for several years, and when he passed away, of course, I became a widow instantly. And you try to figure out what to do. I think a lot of times when you have a long-term illness, you're so focused on healing, you're not thinking about your recovery. So this whirlwind begins where you go from having family and children all around you and you're all alone the next day, and you kind of have to figure out how to move forward. So I think I did the conventional things that many widows do. I reached out to my pastor and spent a lot of time reading a lot of different books because I'm a self-taught kind of person, but eventually I could tell that I needed something more. And luckily, through my search, I found Carolyn Moore, our founder of Modern Widows Club, and she had begun an organization in 2011 after losing her husband in the year 2000. She's actually been a widow for 17 years now and lost her husband on Valentine's Day after they had a lovely dinner together in a terrible car accident. And she had 2 young children, 2 and 4. And so she began meeting other widows, and what started out really at a kitchen table as conversation has now spread to a 17-chapter organization all across the United States. So as I started working with Carolyn, she really helped me. She was a true mentor and a dear friend that gave me lots of good ideas, things to think about and what to do and how to kind of help start healing myself. But after a period of time, I felt very led to open a chapter in Houston. So in September of 2011, we started the Houston chapter, and now we have 3 area chapters in the Memorial area, River Oaks, and the Woodlands. And we try to help widows kind of lean back into life after loss, try to start again, rebrand themselves, and think about what they want to do with the rest of their lives, and have some fun and fellowship at the same time. So it's not really just grief support, it's more like life support, we like to call it.
So lay out sort of the program then. You said it's not really so much grief support. So maybe that comes first?
Yes, a lot of times we do recommend different grief support throughout the community. In fact, at St. John the Divine, we work very closely with the Stevens Ministry. They have a grief support group. A lot of our ladies have gone to Grief Share and had great results from that. And so that's kind of how it happened at St. John's. The reason they were willing to partner with us after I'd gone to a dozen churches that didn't want to have our ministry there was because they felt like they had the grief support, but they didn't know about the ladies, what to do after that. So what our group does, it's more education, mentorship. For example, we've in the last few months, we've had an attorney come and talk to us about wills and estate planning, insurance. We've had someone come and talk to us about Social Security and how your benefits work. We've talked about financial planning, and also we do mentorship on different projects. We just did vision boards a few months ago with some of our members that have followed Christina Rasmussen and read Second First, a really great resource to try to help the ladies start thinking outside the box. What do you want to do that you've never done, and how do you make that happen? We also do social events. We just had a huge dinner where we all got together at Ciro's Italian, and 24 ladies, and that's a family favorite of ours. So when I called to make our reservation, it's like it's going to be 24 like widows, right? And we need a private room. But I have to tell you, I was coming in from being out of town, and I was a little bit late. But to walk into that room and see all these ladies, and some of them actually joined that night. They had never met each other, or they'd known each other a few months, to hear them laughing and talking, and I think just connecting, that common piece of compassion for each other, that they understood, even though the details may be different, the pain is unique, and that no one really understands the walk of a widow except for another widow. Not your family, not your friends. They want to support you, but it's very unique. So that's the kinds of things that we try to do through our club.
So that shared experience, even though the
Yes.
details might be different, you understand each other in a way that others simply can't.
And we can answer their questions and be there to encourage them even on the hard days. We, of course, have grief that comes up, but it's more about trying to think about, well, how can you respond to that, or how you make some changes in your life to help move yourself forward.
Is there a key time when people, a certain time period after an event, loss of a spouse, this would be most helpful?
It's really a very unique journey, so it depends on the individual. Recently, we've had several new members that have joined in the last few months that have only been widows for a very few months, which was surprising to me. Many of our widows have been widows, I would say more between 1 to 3 years is when you start to get over the newness of widowhood, if you will, and start to think, I've got to make some decisions. And then we actually have a new member that joined recently that's been a widow for over 21 years. So there's no set rules, and that's one of the things that we emphasize, because a lot of people will try to give you advice on when you should do things, and really it's a unique decision that that person has to make. So really any timeline is a good time to join.
Give me the numbers that are kind of amazing. The numbers of widows that there are, first of all, in this country, but also in the Houston area, and their ages.
Yes, it's a staggering number, honestly. There's been a lot of research done on widowhood. In the United States alone, we're in one of the top 10 countries with the most widows. We have over 12 million, and actually we gain about 1 million widows every year. The other thing that's surprising is that the average age of a widow is 59. I lost my husband at the age of 53, the same age that my mother lost my father. And both of us had 3 children to raise. So it's something you don't always think about. I think people think of widows as being older, but that's not necessarily the case. We have widows that are in their 30s, and we have widows that are in their 90s. We have some widows that have been widows twice. The other thing that's interesting is that over 33% of all widows in the U.S. are under the age of 65, and almost 25% of them are desperately poor in poverty levels, because overnight you lose not only that support of your love life, but all of your foundation of your family.
What happens to a great deal of these women when unprepared? They face the death of a spouse, and they're faced with decision-making which they have never been privy to. Talk about that a little bit and how important that is.
It's so important. That's where the educational piece of Modern Widows Club comes in. In fact, we had an attorney that came and spoke to the Houston chapter not too long ago, and it's staggering to know that the majority of people, I think he said 85%, don't even have wills. I was raised in a law firm, and so, my husband and I had wills when we got married at 21. But it's just unbelievable, and not to mention the powers of attorney, both medical and legal. All those kinds of things are so important. So we try to educate the ladies, but also we have many ladies that come and their husbands, for whatever reason, didn't want to share with them. Not necessarily because they didn't want them to have the information, more than I think they were trying to be protective and supportive, but a lot of times not knowing all the information about where your bank account is or a password. Or we have one particular member that just bought a brand new home, and her husband was a banker, so he knew so much. She didn't make any decisions about their current home, and over time she wasn't able to keep that with that loss of income and change in lifestyle. So she's just purchased her very first new home, and so delighted to pick out the door frame and the color of the rooms. And so it's really encouraging and inspiring to raise awareness, first of all, that women, everyone should know. And not only that, I tease with my family, if things had been reversed, I'm not sure that my husband knew where the bank accounts all were. He just handed me his paycheck. So it's important that everyone know your financial situation, that everyone have wills in place, medical and financial powers of attorney, legal powers of attorney. These are very important documents. And also to have a plan for the future. A lot of our ladies, they have no life insurance, no medical insurance, different things. And then all of a sudden, in addition to dealing with this tremendous grief, you have to make some real, true life decisions. You're going to have to move out of your home. One of our members had to live out of a car. There's all kinds of terrible stories that people don't think about, those secondary losses.
Just a real quick, perhaps an obvious question, but your organization is not geared to help widowers, is that correct?
No, just for the girls.
Just for the girls,
It's all
yes.
for women. We have a lot of requests, but I think that there's something special that comes from women talking to women. They have great connection and compassion for each other. There's a lot of tears and smiles, but I think that it would be uncomfortable for many of our members if we had men there as well.
What would you like individuals to know, and what would you like perhaps organizations to know, whether it's a business or whether it's a church?
Okay. Well, what I would like individuals to know primarily is, sad to say, but everyone knows a widow. While it's a club that we don't look for membership, and I never am recruiting, if anyone knows anyone that's a widow that's looking for some support or to meet some new friends or learn some new things, it's a great opportunity. As I mentioned, we have 3 chapters in the Houston area, more than any other city in the country, and there's more chapters in Texas than any other state in the union, and that's just because we do things big in Texas. As I said, I'm my self-proclaimed Southwest Regional Director for Modern Widows, and I wanted to spread the word. So really it's just to let someone know we're here to support them and help them any way we can. Sometimes you can't come to the meetings, but also if you join the national organization, Modern Widows Club, it's an incredible resource. You get information all the time. It's $25 a year. It's the best $25 you'll ever spend. And then from our local chapter, I also do a newsletter about twice a month, sending out a collection of different articles and resources that I find helpful, in addition to planning some social events and, of course, our monthly meetings. For the community at large, I would really like to raise awareness. I think that no one knows this organization really exists throughout the city, and we need support. We need donations. We need help. Eventually, we want to have curriculum and training for all of our chapters so that we can share with the ladies and really have all kinds of programs. One of the things that Modern Widows has done on the national level has sponsored work with Both Hands, an organization that helps orphans get into homes. So actually there's widows where they go and help them fix their homes so that they can take in orphans, and I love that. We were talking earlier, John, about widows and orphans. Those two things come together and they need support. And even if it's not financial support for the organization, which is very important, just local support. You know, call a widow that you know and say, hey, I've got a few extra hours. Could I come by your house? Do you need to change an air filter you can't reach? Do you have a fountain in the backyard that's broken? Can I rake a bag of leaves? People don't think about it. I think widowhood, they think, oh, it's, you know, a month or 6 weeks or a year. I've had people tell me, aren't you over that yet? It's like, no, I spent 40 years with my husband, you know, between dating, and I'm never going to be over it. Am I different because of it? Yes, but it's really nice to have that support.
What happens to those dear women who, with their husbands, were great in society, they were great in their church work, and all of a sudden he disappears in death? She's by herself. Do the friends have to change then, or do they change normally? Because now that's a single person together with married group. How do you help with that?
That's very painful. We actually just had that discussion recently. Well, one thing that I want to tell you is that a lot of widows, we don't realize we're single for a long time. It took me 18 months. I was literally in the car driving down the street, and all of a sudden I realized I'm single. Like, I knew I was a widow pretty quickly. That was fairly obvious, but I think in your mind, and I remember telling our minister, you know, our love is so strong, it won't matter. Kevin will be in heaven and I'll be here, but we'll still be together. But over time, you start to realize that that's somewhat unrealistic. They really are not there, and they can't help you, and they're not helping you transform. So with your friends, it's kind of interesting from a widow's perspective, and this is just my perspective. It's hard to stay friends with the same friends. So many continue to be supportive, but over time you start to see, especially the couple friends, even though my husband was an avid hunter and fisher and was fisherman and was often gone, and I would go alone. Now it's like they don't know what to do with you. It's like, you don't have that other partner, and also for me, it's uncomfortable sometimes to go where I know that every single person is going to be coupled up with someone else, and you just don't really know. Most of the time it doesn't bother me, but it does. So sometimes I think one of the things that we've learned with Modern Widows is it does build new friendships. So you do need to have some new, single friends that you can do things with and evolve with. So I think that most really good friends stay with you, and I would tell anyone that is facing that situation, don't be afraid. Just be yourself. I think people are afraid they're going to say the wrong thing. Just spend time with your friend, just like it always was. They just want your friendship and love just like they did before. That part of it really did not change at all.
Before we do a little PR for ourselves, tell me a little bit about, very quickly, how people can be in contact with you. Give us a website, give us a phone number and email where they can say, this is important information I need to get more from Natalie about. Give that to us,
Okay,
please.
I sure would. Okay, the national organization is Modern Widows Club, and if you actually go to that site, just modernwidowsclub.com, you'll see chapters, and if you click on Houston, you'll see our information there. There's also a Woodlands chapter that's there, and actually Houston has 2 chapters, one in the Memorial area. In addition to that, for those of you that are familiar with meetups, we have a meetups group for the Houston chapters as well, where we advertise different organizations and when we meet for different social things. My email is Natalie, Natalie, at modernwidowsclub.com, Natalie at modernwidowsclub.com. And you can also reach me on my cell, 713-515-3587. Again, 713-515-3587. And we'd be happy to correspond to any of you. We are all volunteers at Modern Widows. They're not paid positions. And so if you'll just be patient with me, I'm really good about being proactive. The other thing we do also is that if you become my Facebook friend, in the way we say that now, we have a private group for Modern Widows where we can speak to each other privately. It's not open to the public, but you have to friend me personally, and then I can put you in the private group. We also don't add anyone to the group until we at least meet them or talk to them. Sadly, widows have to worry about stalkers. There's all kinds of scams and things for widows, and especially like on different websites. Some of our ladies that have gone on Match or different things that they see widows, so they tell you on Facebook or any social media, don't put that you're a widow, because sadly people misuse that information.
Natalie, it's really a pleasure to have you here. I've been thinking while you've been talking about children, because we have a flock and we have a flock of grandchildren, and what happens to a wife like yourself when you're left with 3 children? What are some of the thoughts that you have about that, and also the children about what has happened?
Well, I think it's very interesting when families go through transition, and of course death is a part of life that often we don't like to think about. In a way, I think that my husband's illness and then his passing helped our family get closer. We did have the gift of time so that we knew, so our time together was very rich, and they were wonderful and supportive and compassionate, and we really had an enjoyable experience spending really great family time together. My husband was very good about leaving us. He always said, you know, as for him and his house, we support the Lord, and even when he was dying, he would tell visitors, I'm going to serve Christ in a new way. I think that's a really unique approach that obviously touched all my children. My children are wonderful. They're such loving gifts from God. They've all been very supportive, and they've gone on to do great things that we're very proud of. I know Kevin would be proud of them too. And I think it's just important for families. Mine were a little bit older. Our youngest son was going to college, which was very difficult right before my husband passed away. But many of our members have younger children, and they really have that struggle of becoming a single parent. I mean, they're the father and the mother all of a sudden. My son sent me a Father's Day card, our first Father's Day. I still have it. I treasure it. But it's important to think as support and local people too, like do anything you can to support them. Even think about carpooling. That's a nightmare because we used to both do all that carpooling together. Well, if you have one parent and 3 children, you can imagine what that looks like. So reach out to others and try to be helpful any way you can.
Natalie, in the book of Acts, there was this discussion of the support for the widows, and the church at the time wasn't doing enough, and so they organized. They got helpers to make sure that there was support for widows. What could churches do today, and what would be a good level of activity and support?
Well, that's a great point, and I think that that's something that is definitely lacking in our community. Everyone is so busy, and everyone gets so wrapped up in their life. I think just volunteering time, first of all, letting them know about our club, if they want to just let them know about it, but most importantly, volunteering time and the gifts of service, any kind of service to help. Again, do they need help with a carpool, or do they need help, with their home? And is there something they could help them with? And even if there's illness, think about when you have to go to a doctor or a hospital, or sometimes the children are too young. Just being aware of widows in your church and being there to support them. I think a lot of times people, again, feel uncomfortable in those conversations, so they just avoid them. But don't be afraid to talk to them. We're just regular people. You've been talking to me for a while now, so I think it's just a piece of our life, but it doesn't identify all that we are. But it would be so nice to have the support.
Oh, believe it or not, we're running into crunch time. Tell me a little bit, before we conclude this, about widows coming to you and saying, you know, had such a good marriage. I'm thinking about getting married again. Are you getting counsel for that?
Yes, we definitely have widows that want to consider love again, and I think that's totally an opportunity. We do talk about that and try to coach through it. Carolyn had a lot of good recommendations. There's some wonderful books that are very helpful that can help you with that. And I think as the women get stronger and determine who they are, the brand new me, they start to move forward and find love again. Absolutely.
So modernwidowsclub.com is the way that they can get to you online. They can find out more information. They can perhaps connect with one of the 2 locations in Houston, but you said they're national, 16 chapters around the country, and I'm sure you'll have a few international listeners as well tonight. So we hope that this program grows. It's very much a needed program. So again, you've been listening to Engaging Truth. We are a part of elmhouston.org. Pastor Schultz and I have been doing this for quite a number of years, and we enjoy demonstrating the relevancy of the gospel of Jesus Christ to people today. And through your work and your service to others, that's just one aspect of our Christian life together, facing the struggles of life with reality, but also with faith and with grace. We'd invite you to join us again for another edition real soon of Engaging Truth.